Okay, here we are. Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Spiritual shit. We're going to get right into it because I love when I'm watching content that they just go straight to the topic. And our first segment is going to be about astral projection. So first, I want your take of what astral projection actually is and what happens when you engage with it.
You know, the more that I try to explain this, the less I feel like I am able to explain it adequately because it's just such a mystery, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
we can pretend like we know what astral projection is, but if we're really honest with ourselves, we don't. You know, it's just a phenomenon that we can experience, and we can try to put our language on it and put our parameters on it, concepts, but ultimately we're experiencing something the universe is doing. And so, you know, the best I can say about what it is from my viewpoint of my experience of it is that, you know, consciousness essentially can only dream experiences because consciousness is non-local, non-physical. So it doesn't have a form itself that it can run around and play games and have experiences with. So it needs to create an illusion of an experience. And it does that, you know, in an infinite variety of ways through infinite different densities of and dimensions of reality. And I think that astral projection is just another one of those densities and dimensions that we can access through consciousness. And we do so through the vehicle of sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. Why? Because something I explain in some of my projection videos is that your consciousness is not like stuck in your body or trapped in your body. It's just deeply focused on your body, right?
Yeah, our body's in our consciousness.
Right, exactly. Your body's in your consciousness in the same way that, you know, your dream character is in your mind at night, right?
Right.
So our physical body just has a lot of different sort of anchor points for consciousness to localize on. You know, your blood circulating, your skin temperature, your heart beating, your neurons firing, food digesting. All of these sensations are absorbing consciousness into it so that it feels like I'm really firmly in this body right now having this experience. But when we sleep at night, the illusion begins to break down a little bit. And we can see that actually my consciousness is not stuck in my body. It's actually non-local. And when my body is deeply relaxed and my mind, the attentive faculties have been sort of shut down for a while. If we know how to manipulate consciousness, we can begin to sort of roam around the universe and experience other dimensions, unlike this one. And so, you know, we call it the astral, which is just like a huge oversimplification of, excuse me, whatever else is out there in an energetic world or a lighter, higher vibrational density. Who knows? But it's definitely, from my experience, it seems to be a real place where real beings exist, and you can speak with them and hear their stories and, you know, all kinds of stuff we can get into. So that's just sort of my understanding and experience of what astral projection is.
So it's really fascinating to me because it entertains the idea that there are multiple dimensions, multiple densities that we can interact with at any point in time. And so, but the way that I found you through this astral projection video was that there was a very instructional way to be able to achieve that. And I've been seeing more and more on content that it's on the rise, that everybody's kind of looking for that. What are the benefits of doing astral projection in the first place, and why has it become such a big thing?
Yeah, I find that to be a really great question that I get asked a lot. People are like, you know, but why? What's the point? Come on. What's really the point of doing this? And the quickest answer is do it and find out for yourself what the point is. But if I, you know, can give you a more detailed answer, I would say that the point of it is to expand your consciousness. You know, suffering can only exist in a story, right? All suffering is a form of a story. And when we just have this little narrow filter that we look through of, I am this body, this person in this little lifetime with my little problems and my sad stories, and that's all that there is. We don't have the ability to widen that lens and sort of zoom out and see the macro perspective of who I am, and get a wider angle that allows me to see the illusion of my stories and suffering. because the truth is we're all multidimensional beings that have, a soul and oversoul, higher self, whatever you want to call it, all the way up to the source consciousness itself is what you are, projecting itself into these little dreams or finite forms to have experiences of itself. And when you take your little story so damn seriously, that's when you get into trouble, right?
Yeah.
And psychedelics is one way to widen that lens, and astral projection is another way to widen that lens and allow you to see that you are just like a little grain of sand on the beach, dust in the wind, here today, gone tomorrow. And the ego is terrified of having that realization, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the ego's going to have a fit with that.
Yeah, my kingdom is crashing down and crumbling to dust,
Yeah.
But that's why you want that experience, because that is what liberates you from the tyranny of the ego and its little kingdom it has you trapped in, of me and my sad story. And you see that, wow, the universe is this vast, infinite expanse of infinite varieties of experiences, and I am all of them. And they're all available to me. And when you explore the astral, just like a psychedelic trip, you start seeing stuff that you didn't think was possible, experiencing stuff you didn't think was possible. And all of a sudden, the conceptual becomes the experiential.
Yeah.
And that's when freedom really becomes your reality and not just an idea.
Well, I had my first astral experience actually a few days ago. This episode actually was supposed to be all about Law of One, but since I had that, I was like, let me talk to Aaron about this. He seems to know a lot about this topic. So I was laying in bed, and it's funny because I had watched your video prior, but I didn't look at the next one that you have where it's more instructional. Or there's two of them, I think. But anyway, I had my headphones on, like you said. I was already listening to some perhaps like ASMR type of stuff or whatever, because I was trying to take a nap, but I couldn't fall asleep. And I wasn't intending on doing anything astral at all. Like it was just, I was like laying there. And then maybe after an hour of kind of like rustling around or whatever, I was like, all right, let me try this astral projection thing. And I slipped into it so fast. Like I wasn't expecting, I was just kind of laying there. And then I started to feel like what felt like my arms starting to pull up, like, or a little bit. And I was like, whoa, what is that? And then I started to feel as if I was kind of hovering above my body, but I was too scared to open my eyes. And I was like, okay, what's happening? And I just had this sensation of like, kind of when you're super high, when you're just kind of like, I'm nowhere and everywhere. And so I felt like I was getting close to like a barrier, like the ceiling perhaps. And then this loud, crazy alarm noise went off, like like really, really loud, that it scared me so bad that I was like, come back. Come back to your body right now. We are not doing this. So
there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Yeah, exactly. No place like Kansas, which I'm in Kansas City, by the way. So that's kind of funny. So anyway, so I came back down, and then I experienced what felt like a seizure, where I was kind of in and out, eyes opening, closing, whatever, that I was in between this state where I was like, I felt like I was moving, like I was having a seizure. And once that stopped, then it, like I was in sleep paralysis. Like I couldn't move for about a minute or two or so. It felt like forever. But what my question is around that is that I felt like I was completely conscious when I made that decision that I wanted to go into astral travel, that I wasn't asleep, because I went to like napped and then I went to the bathroom and I came back. But I thought, oh shit, what if I never woke up? I was already astral traveling. That's when I went to the bathroom and then came in and was like, let's do this astral thing.
It's possible. Yeah. You would probably know once the experience was over, though, that it definitely wasn't your real body going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's the best time to try to project, is after it's called the waking back to bed method. Yeah. You want to get yourself alert enough to where you can still drift back into sleep, but it's not like a deep sleep.
Yeah.
Your mind doesn't just nosedive, but you can sort of stay conscious a little bit, and then you start to project somewhere. So that makes sense that would have been why you were able to project that quickly.
Yeah. It was super easy. So then I tried it again, of course, and it didn't work. But I was like, all right, let's do that. Like, what are all the steps? What was I listening to before? Let me like see if I can make this magical formula to do it again. But even though, like, for my listeners, like, you guys should go look him up and go find these videos. They're very instructional and very informational. But for you, like, what are your experiences? How often do you astral travel? What do you see while you're there? What are some major awakenings that you came to while you're in the astral realm?
Well, I haven't astral projected in probably 6 months or more, since I've been doing counseling and, YouTube all the time. I have to do it. I'm not naturally a gifted astral projector, so I have to spend weeks at a time going through my practices and reintroducing myself to the visualizations and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's what astral projection really is you're sort of training your subconscious mind to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Like it has to know that, okay, when I reach this part of my sleep cycle, I want to become lucid and da 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 da. So you have to sort of try to do it for a while without any real results, and then eventually you're taking a nap one day and then boom, it happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you have to be asleep for this to happen at all?
No, really, really advanced projectors can do it in meditation.
Uh-huh.
I've had it happen once incidentally in meditation, but it never on purpose. Sleep is just really helpful because it shuts down all of the cognitive faculties of the mind for a while to allow your consciousness more freedom. But
Okay.
it's just the easiest doorway sort of to the astral.
Mhm.
But, I have to do the waking back to bed method in the morning, get up early, stay awake for 10 minutes, go back to sleep. And, I have clients at 8 a.m. usually, and I just don't have time to do that now.
Yeah.
But I did devote, many years to it. And I've probably had, around 50 astral projections in my life. So
That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good amount.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself an expert by any means, but I consider myself advanced enough to make videos about, hey, here's how I do it and follow my steps.
Videos that reach almost 1 million views.
Yeah.
So what are some experiences that you've had while you've done it? Like, what did you see? What did you experience, if it's not too personal?
Man, it's so different every time.
Mm-hmm.
I've had
Give me your favorite one.
Okay, favorite one. So my first real, it's so tricky to talk about where I think I was and all that, but my first real, hyper real astral projection happened years ago when I was obsessed with it, and every single day I was trying to do it. I worked at a gym in the morning and then a gym at night, 2 different gyms, and I'd be home during the day. And so I would go like, 10 or 11 o'clock. I would take naps and lay on my couch and binaural beats and everything. And one of those days I was on my bed and I fell asleep doing my visualizations, and I had this dream that I was like a cowboy on a horse or something like that. I was walking around on this horse, riding around on this horse. And for some reason I was trying to get up this hill, and I had a lasso and I lassoed this big rock. Lasso stuck around the rock, and as soon as I pulled it, I pulled myself sort of out of my body, I guess, because I sat up in bed like this, and I was sort of like 45-degree angle in bed, sitting up, holding onto this rope. And the rope was going into the wall, and it was just as real as right now.
Yeah.
It felt just as real as this moment. But I'm holding onto this rope, and it's like the rope is like I don't know, you could say sparklier, ethereal looking. And I'm holding on to it and going, what the hell is happening right now? I'm looking around my room, and I'm holding this rope, and the curtains next to me were normally green, dark green, but they were like a pinkish color.
Mm-hmm.
So the curtains were different, but everything about my room looked mostly the same. And it kind of freaked me out. And so I woke up, I sat up again, and this time I was actually sitting up in my body. Yeah. And I went, whoa, holy shit, that was insane. Mm-hmm. So I started looking up and talking to people on forum boards of like, what was that? And some people had some theories. And one of the theories that I read was exactly what my theory was, which is that a lot of times when people get out of body, like have an OBE in their room,
Yeah.
they will see things about their house or whatever that's a bit different.
Yeah.
And what I believe that is that in the in much higher density realms, and I know that this is how it works because of when you're lucid dreaming or projecting, you can create objects
Mm-hmm.
in your mind, but you have to focus on them with a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like perception is creation, right?
Yeah.
And so if I want to create like a table, I have to see the table in my mind's eye and bring it to life and feel it with my energy hands, and then the table will materialize.
Mm-hmm.
But then if I turn around and look at something else and look back, the table will be like disappearing or maybe even gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it only has the life force that my consciousness gave it through
Mm-hmm.
attention, right?
Yeah.
So I think why things look different to people is that somebody else lived in the house before you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they had a different couch or a different, the couch in my living room one time looked different.
Mm-hmm.
And they had observed that couch for how many years?
Okay. So the vibrational imprint is still there.
You got it.
Yeah.
The imprint energetically is still there in the astral. And so that's kind of what is made manifest. So until your energy imprint of whatever bed or curtains or couch you have maybe like overtakes that one.
Yeah.
When you go into the energy dimension of it, the imprint of the past is still there from that person. And
that's really fucking cool.
This trip, right?
So does that mean then, so if we want to talk about, for instance, I'm a medium, so I interact with spirits and ghosts, I see stuff, like the whole deal. If that's the case, the astral realm that you're going into while you're in that trance or sleep state, is that the dimension that we would observe the paranormal?
Yes. I believe that the way it works is more like everything we think, thought creates reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that our thought creates, when we think about something, like I think about my couch, I visualize my couch in my head. Well, all thought has to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that our thoughts create an energetic version of that object as we see it and experience it and believe it in
Mm-hmm.
an astral realm. Like, you could say we create a dimension where that exists. And so when you project outside of your body, if you go to focus one, you might see the energetic imprint, which is linked to the actual object,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
In that energy dimension. And so whether or not other beings might be there is definitely possible, but for sure, if you're experiencing an entity or anything of the paranormal nature, that's happening in the astral, not in the physical or this 3D, third density reality, but you're tuning into it somehow with extrasensory perception, third
Mm-hmm.
eye, pineal gland. And so you're able to sort of see both realities at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that, people who are alcoholics, there's this condition called delirium tremens. Have you heard of that?
No.
So it's a condition where if you drink alcohol enough, alcohol will block dream sleep.
Yeah.
Mind, one of the 4 stages. And so your mind needs all 4 stages of dream sleep equally. And if you deny your body dream sleep, it'll eventually say, all right, well, you're not letting me get this sleep and I literally cannot function without it. And we're running on red line here. So I'm going to just take it from you. And so people start dreaming while they're awake.
Oh, wow.
So they'll see their dream imprinted over reality.
Mm-hmm.
There's a famous story of a marathon runner who broke the world record for the 100-mile race. I can't remember her name, but she tells this story where she broke the record by like a huge amount of time. And they asked her, how did you do it? And she said, well, I didn't stop to sleep. Everyone stops.
She didn't what?
She didn't stop to sleep.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And most people will stop and they'll take a 10-minute, 20-minute nap and then keep running because you'll start hallucinating if you don't.
Yeah.
And so what she did was she had I guess everyone has like a buddy that is on a bicycle next to them.
Yeah.
To keep them accountable and safe and all that. So she told her partner, she said, let me sleep for 1 minute. And her partner said, okay. So she would lay back against a tree and fall asleep. And she would have these hyper vivid dreams that felt like hours or days long. And she would wake up and get super angry at her partner and go, "What the hell? I told you 1 minute." And her partner's like, "That was 1 minute."
That's crazy.
And she's like, "How's that possible?" But her brain was so deprived that, time doesn't really exist, right? So she goes into
Right.
some dream dimension where she experiences days at a time, and it's just a minute
Wow.
of time in this reality.
Well, then she feels super rested, right?
Well, that's the thing. So she got just enough sleep to keep running.
Hmm.
So she's running, and she said, as I got near the end of the race, Barney's running next to me. There's a giant bunny rabbit like making faces at me, peep beings and ancestors around me, and she's looking at her partner on the bike, just going, "How much longer do we have?"
Yes.
So it's possible to experience multiple realities at the same
Hmm.
time, but it takes certain variables being in place, and that's why we have to train ourselves through meditation and visualization and all that stuff, because this third density reality here is very hard and low vibrational and dense, and so
Yeah.
it
It's
absorbs our
heavy.
attention. Yeah, it's heavy, but you can see into the astral or perceive in an extrasensory way, in whatever way you do as a medium.
Hmm.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah. There's so that triggered memory of this dream. So maybe I was astral projecting. I just wasn't aware of it in the way that I did this time. But I had a dream one time where I have this recurring dream all the time where I'm running in the airport and I've lost my bag or my passport or something like that. I have it 3 or 4 times a week, like a
Wow.
lot. I've been having it probably for 15 years. I sat in a channeled session where my guides came through and said, "This is Aaliyah trying to leave her body every time." So every time you get to the airport, you're like, "Oh wait, I don't have my bag." It's like, "Wait, you can't leave yet. You don't have your body." So I
Okay.
continue to have this dream. So I didn't find out what it meant until later, but before, maybe a couple of years ago, I was living in Brooklyn and I was in this dream, couldn't find my passport, couldn't get on the plane, the whole thing. And these really tall beings came up to me
Hmm.
and they were like, "Aaliyah, stop." And I was like, no, I have to get on the plane. And they were like, "Stop." And everything around me stopped, like completely halted. And I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And they were like, "We're trying to communicate with you. We need you to just, like, when you come here, we want to talk to you." And I was like, "Come where?" And so they like snapped and we went up into what I can only perceive as the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, like space, purple, pink, whatever. Nothing around. We're not standing on anything. We're just kind of floating. And they're like, "This is where you can communicate with us. This is where you can talk to us." And I was like, "Okay." And they said, "So the next time you have this dream, try and focus really hard on where you're at. What are the details? It's why we keep giving you the same dream." So it's like some inception shit,
Wow.
keep getting the same dream over and over so you can recognize the stop signs, right? So I said, "Okay." And they're like, "Try really hard to focus on where you're going to be at, blah, blah, blah." So I wake up from the dream. I'm super freaked because I'm like, "Who the hell was that?" It felt super real. And so then maybe like for 2 weeks, I had the dream every night and couldn't quite get where it was. And so one morning, waking back to bed, I woke up and then I fell back asleep. And in this dream, I was driving or riding in an Uber on the way to the airport. And I was in an Uber pool because apparently in my dreams, I can't even have my own Uber, but that's another story. So I'm in an Uber pool and the driver is a gorilla. And it's very strange because most of my dreams are very real, not like realistic. So in the front seat, there's the gorilla's driving. He's trying to tell me something, but I can't understand him because he's whoop, wah, wah, wah. And then there's a man next to me who looks very peculiar and he's kind of sketchy looking. So we're on the way, and then the Uber pulls into the gas station, and I was like, "Oh, that's probably what the gorilla was trying to tell me, that they needed gas." So very logical. And so anyway, when I look over to my right, the man who's in the car pulls out a gun, and he's like, points it up, shoots it through the ceiling. We all get down. He points it at me. I jump out of the car. He shoots, misses me. I run behind a stall. He's doing that slow walking thing where you just, you can run as fast as you want and they're right there.
Right.
So I go into the convenience store and I'm just like, I'm in so much fear, like I'm about to die. And I'm having this moment of like, wait a minute, something about this feels familiar. starting to come to, I start looking at my hands, and it's as real, like you said, as real as we're talking right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going, wait a minute. Okay. This is, hold on. Is this a dream? And so he points the gun at me, and I did the thing that the two beings did before they snapped, but they kind of touched the wall when they did it. So I closed my eyes and just touched the wall next to me, and I jumped like to another like dimension or plane. I ended up being at my sister's house, jumped right there. And I was like, oh my God, I did it. I jumped. I made the leap. I made this. And my sister comes in and she's like, what are you doing? We got to go to the airport. And I was like, I fucking did it. And she's like, where's your bag? And I was like, I left it in the other dream. So anyway, we walked out the door, and it was the whole thing. So I feel like that would have been like a proper astral projection or a lucid dream of some sort. That was my most memorable one. But in that interaction with, like you said, the realities or the imprintations, but also other entities, like there seemed to have been like a connection with something conscious, bringing me to that space, trying to make that connection. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yes, that's a very common thing with projection, is that you'll meet, people call it your spirit guide or your astral guide, but it's basically, you from a higher density version of you that is guiding you through that experience. And my guide will bring me in. This is also very common. Will bring me on like these different what do I call it? They're called retrievals. Mm-hmm. It's something you do that your guide will show you, like, hey, here's some beings that are kind of stuck in different astral dimensions based on a trauma they experienced in an incarnation. And when they die, it was such an intense trauma, whatever it was, that they kept recreating it in the astral. And without the sense of time in the astral, they don't know that they're trapped in a loop, a feedback loop of their own emotional energy that they need to heal and forgive and cleanse. And so there's this phenomenon in the astral called retrievals, where you go to try and help these beings out of this loop.
I've done that.
Have you?
Yeah. I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah.
That's a trip. Okay. So you've done that?
Once.
Okay. And what was that like? What happened?
So, and I said all that to confirm what you were asking about, like those tall beings that were trying to guide you. Like the reason your driver was a gorilla is most likely because your guide or guides were trying to put themes in these dreams for you to try and snap you out of it. So they'll make it like a gunman tries to kill you and you're afraid. And those kind of things push you to the edge of your dream consciousness, to where you're forced to look for an out. And then that wakes you up and go, oh, I'm in a dream within a dream. Yeah. And you can shift into another dimension and then hopefully meet with them or have whatever experience they want you to have. And so that's the kind of the nature of projection, is that consciousness changes its experience by shifting its focus. That's all it does. So whatever you're experiencing in front of you, you have to know that it's just an illusion. It's not actually there. And if you can disregard what you're having, what experience you're having now, and imagine a different one, then you can snap to that reality or dimension where that's happening. And so, just like in this 3D we're in right now, imagination is a portal to other worlds. And that's why in Law of Attraction, you visualize the reality you want, you bring it to life with emotion and feeling, and the universe begins bringing you synchronicities that will allow you to step into that reality. Well, in the astral, it's a much higher vibrational, thousands of times or whatever higher in frequency. And so you can snap into a new reality basically instantly. Sometimes it takes a bit. You kind of have a merging process where the current reality fades away and the new one comes in. But yeah, that's kind of how it works. And so, I had one experience where my guide asked me if I wanted to do a retrieval, because I'd read a lot about them on these forum boards. Yeah. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So he took me to some place where he basically looks exactly like me. Took me to some place. The
retrievable or your guide?
My guide. Okay. And it was like a war veteran who was sort of stuck in this loop of, like, he was like on the battlefield and his friend had stepped on a landmine or something. and he was holding, like, from what I saw, I was seeing what I saw of him, which was just a person by himself holding a fake body and saying like, Fred, no, Fred, or whatever the guy's name was. I don't remember. And I approached him, and I could tune into his reality and see what he was seeing. And I almost like both at the same time. And I saw that he had a helmet on, and it was like a World War I or World War II, veteran. And he's holding this guy, and I sort of like try to get his attention. I'm like, hey, excuse me, sir, who are you talking to? He's like, my friend, quick, go get help. His leg is blown off. And he's like freaking out. And I'm like, I don't see anyone here. Are you sure? Are you positive is this real? And, I kept kind of having this dialogue with him, and he wasn't able to step out of it. And I kept looking back at my guide, and he just kept like, do the best you can. He didn't want to like give me the answers or whatever, how to do this. And so eventually I couldn't get anywhere with him. And so he kept relating to me like I was another soldier,
Yeah.
He was still stuck in that trauma so intensely. And so I
have a question about that.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you looked back at your guide to see if like, hey, can you help me out or whatever? Because I've done a few retrievals as well. And I find that and I had the question, why must it be me that goes into this realm to help these people through? Why aren't our guides doing that?
Yeah. Well, the retrieval is just as much for you as it is for the person you're trying to save.
Okay.
It's a way that, the service to others path, and like in Law 1, it's all about free will. Honoring free will is the number one priority. So your guide will allow you to go on a retrieval and help you get there, but they're not going to be like, okay, and here's what you do, and here's what you do, and here's what you do, because that's not honoring your free will. They need you to learn. The experience itself is like a medium through which you expand.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I always thought it was like, well, they're trapped there. Like, go help them. Why am I like the less powerful one coming in and helping them with it when you guys could do that very easily?
Yes. Teach learning, as they call it.
Yeah. Teach learning. That's right. Very cool.